The Galactic Council had ruled the stars for nearly 3,000 years. Across thousands of worlds and countless species, their authority had never truly been challenged. Civilizations rose. Civilizations fell. Entire governments changed. Yet the Council remained. To most of the galaxy, that stability was a sign of wisdom. To the Council's oldest members, it was proof of control. And now, for the first time in centuries, that control was beginning to slip. A massive chamber floated above the capital world of the Council. Its transparent walls revealed streams of starships moving through space like rivers of light. Representatives from the most powerful species sat in silence as a giant holographic map of the galaxy rotated before them. One region glowed brighter than the others. Human territory. The Council members stared at it with growing concern. Just 80 years earlier, humanity had been considered insignificant. A young species. Curious. Unpredictable. Harmless. Now things were different. Human trade networks connected sectors that had remained isolated for centuries. Human engineers were solving problems other species had declared impossible. Human diplomats were creating alliances faster than anyone could track them. And perhaps most concerning of all, every year, more worlds preferred dealing with humans than with the Council itself. That fact terrified them. Their influence grows beyond acceptable levels, one Council member finally said. They are becoming independent. Another representative leaned forward. Independent civilizations become dangerous civilizations. A murmur spread through the chamber. Everyone knew what that statement really meant. Dangerous to whom? Dangerous to the galaxy, or dangerous to the Council's power? No one asked the question aloud. The debate continued for hours. Economic sanctions were discussed. Political pressure was considered. Trade restrictions were proposed. None of it seemed sufficient. Humanity adapted too quickly. Every obstacle placed before them became an opportunity. Every setback somehow made them stronger. Eventually an ancient Council member spoke. The room immediately fell silent. His species had helped found the Council itself. His words carried enormous weight. If humanity cannot be controlled. He paused. Then humanity must be reminded of its place. A cold silence filled the chamber. Everyone understood. This was no longer a political discussion. It was a decision. Moments later a secret vote was conducted. The results appeared above the table. Approved. The operation would proceed, and humanity would never know who was responsible. Far from the Council capital, hidden within a classified military installation, a different meeting was already underway. 6 figures stood in darkness. Each belonged to a different species. Each had survived missions that should have been impossible. Each had killed targets protected by entire armies. Together they formed the most feared covert unit in the galaxy. Officially they did not exist. Unofficially they ended problems. A hologram appeared. 5 human faces rotated slowly above the table. Scientists, industrial leaders, military strategists, diplomats, individuals considered critical to humanity's continued growth. These targets must be eliminated, a voice instructed. No traces, no witnesses, no connection to the Council. One assassin studied the faces. Humans. The voice responded immediately. Do not underestimate them. Several assassins exchanged amused glances. Humans were clever. Humans were ambitious. But they were still young compared to most galactic civilizations. The mission appeared straightforward. The team accepted the assignment. Within hours they vanished into hyperspace. Weeks passed. The first target died during what appeared to be a shuttle malfunction. A respected scientist. One moment alive, the next reduced to debris drifting through orbit. The official investigation concluded it was an accident. The second target suffered a catastrophic laboratory explosion. The third disappeared entirely. The fourth died during a diplomatic visit. The fifth barely survived an attack that should have been impossible to detect. Across human space, concern began to spread. Individually the incidents seemed unrelated. Together they formed a disturbing pattern. At first nobody wanted to believe it. Then analysts began comparing data. Security footage, communication records, travel logs, financial transactions, tiny details, pieces that should not have connected. Yet somehow they did. Deep beneath Earth's surface, Inside one of humanity's most secure intelligence facilities, dozens of analysts worked around the clock. A giant display covered an entire wall. Every new piece of information appeared instantly. At first the connections were weak. Then stronger. Then undeniable. A young analyst stared at the screen. His eyes widened. "Sir." The room's director approached. "What is it?" The analyst swallowed hard. These weren't accidents. The director's expression darkened. "What are you seeing?" The analyst highlighted several data streams. Microsecond communication bursts. Unregistered ship signatures. Navigation anomalies. Patterns hidden so deeply that normal investigations would never have found them. The room grew silent. Someone was targeting humanity. And whoever they were extremely good. For several minutes nobody spoke. Finally the director looked around the room. "Does anyone here believe this is random?" No hands rose. He nodded. "Neither do I." A new order was issued immediately. Every intelligence agency across human space received classified instructions. Find the attackers. No matter how long it takes. No matter who they are. The hunt had begun. Meanwhile, on the opposite side of the galaxy, the assassins celebrated. Every report indicated success. No suspicion pointed toward the Council. No evidence connected the missions. No retaliation had occurred. Everything was proceeding exactly as planned. One operative laughed while reviewing the latest intelligence updates. "Humans never even saw us." The others agreed. The operation would soon conclude. Human leadership would be weakened. The Council would regain control. And the galaxy would continue as it always had. What none of them realized was that humanity had already stopped looking at the victims. Human investigators were no longer asking who died. They were asking who benefited. And that single question was about to change everything. If you're enjoying this journey through the stars, don't forget to subscribe to HYF Sci-Fi for more epic stories where humanity proves why it should never be underestimated. Days later, new evidence emerged. Then more. Then even more. The pieces were beginning to form a picture. A terrifying picture. One that pointed far beyond rogue mercenaries. Far beyond criminal organizations. Far beyond rival governments. As senior intelligence officers gathered around the growing web of connections, a realization slowly spread through the room. The attacks were too precise. Too coordinated. Too expensive. Only one force in the galaxy possessed the resources necessary for such an operation. The same force humanity had trusted for decades. The same force that claimed to protect galactic peace. The same force that publicly called humanity a valued partner. The Galactic Council. And when that possibility appeared on the screen for the very first time, nobody in the room spoke. Because if it was true, the consequences would reach every star in the galaxy. The consequences would reach every star in the galaxy. For several long seconds, nobody inside the intelligence facility moved. The words hanging above the holographic display felt impossible. The Galactic Council, the organization that claimed to maintain peace. The government trusted by thousands of worlds. The institution humanity had worked beside for decades. Could they really be responsible? The director stared at the evidence. His instincts told him the answer was yes. His experience told him to be careful. Assumptions started wars. Proof ended them. "We proceed quietly," he finally said. "No accusations. No public statements. No military mobilization." Several officers looked surprised. "If the Council is behind this, shouldn't we warn the government?" "We will." The director nodded. "But first we need certainty." Humanity had learned long ago that anger could be a weapon. But patience could be even deadlier. Within hours, a classified operation received authorization. Only a handful of individuals knew it existed. Its official designation was simple. Operation Mirror. The objective was unlike anything humanity had attempted before. They would not strike back. Not yet. Instead they would learn everything. Every secret. Every hidden transaction. Every classified conversation. Every political manipulation buried beneath centuries of bureaucracy. If the Council had attacked humanity, then humanity intended to discover why. And more importantly, what else they were hiding. Across human space, thousands of specialists quietly went to work. Cyber experts, intelligence officers, behavioral analysts, linguists, engineers, mathematicians. For the first time in history, humanity's greatest minds were united behind a single mission. The search for truth. Months passed. To the outside galaxy, nothing seemed unusual. Trade continued. Diplomatic meetings continued. Human ships traveled peacefully between worlds. The Council watched carefully. They saw no signs of retaliation. No fleets gathering. No emergency declarations. No threats. No demands. The Council members grew increasingly confident. Their operation had succeeded. Humanity appeared unaware. Behind closed doors, some representatives even began discussing additional actions. If 5 targets had weakened humanity, perhaps more pressure would produce greater results. Meanwhile, Operation Mirror continued expanding. Human investigators followed every lead. Most ended in dead ends. A few revealed something far more interesting. One evening, a human analyst discovered an encrypted financial network hidden inside ordinary trade records. The transactions stretched back hundreds of years. At first they appeared harmless. Then patterns emerged. Entire governments had received unexplained funding shortly before changing policies. Political rivals had mysteriously disappeared. Economic crises had benefited specific council members. Nothing proved criminal activity, yet together the pattern looked disturbingly deliberate. The analyst forwarded the information. Others began digging deeper. Soon another team uncovered classified communications. Then another uncovered secret military agreements. Then another discovered evidence of covert interference between dozens of worlds. Every week revealed another layer. Every layer exposed another secret. The deeper humanity looked, the uglier the picture became. What shocked them most was not the corruption itself. Every government had corruption. Every civilization had flaws. What shocked them was the scale. For centuries, powerful council members had manipulated entire regions of space to maintain influence. Conflicts had been encouraged, alliances sabotaged, competitors weakened, entire populations used as pieces in political games. Humanity was not the first target. It was simply the latest. One senior analyst sat silently after reviewing a collection of records. He leaned back in disbelief. How many worlds know this? His colleague shook her head. Almost none. The analyst looked at the display. Then the galaxy isn't being governed. He paused. It's being managed. Far away, inside the Galactic Council's capital station, celebrations quietly continued. Reports confirmed humanity remained cooperative. Trade agreements were still active. Diplomatic relations appeared stable. The operation had become a textbook success. Several council members congratulated one another. One representative even joked that humans had finally learned humility. Laughter echoed through the chamber. None of them knew that humanity was already inside systems they believed impossible to penetrate. 1 year after the first assassination, Operation Mirror reached a breakthrough. A communications specialist intercepted an ancient archive buried beneath multiple security layers. The archive contained private discussions between senior council officials dating back nearly a century. Thousands of conversations, millions of files. The discovery triggered immediate excitement. Teams worked around the clock. As translators processed the data, a horrifying truth emerged. Humanity's suspicions had been correct. The assassinations had not been authorized by a rogue faction. They had been approved at the highest levels. Recorded votes, encrypted orders, operational authorizations, everything existed. Every denial, every lie, every secret. Humanity finally had proof. Absolute proof. Inside a secure conference room, military leaders and civilian representatives gathered to review the findings. The atmosphere was tense. Many expected demands for retaliation. Some expected war. Others expected sanctions. Instead, the discussion moved in a very different direction. What happens if we release this? One official asked. Silence followed. Everyone understood the question. The evidence could destroy governments, collapse alliances, trigger unrest across thousands of worlds. The truth itself had become a weapon. A dangerous weapon. Finally, an elderly advisor spoke. The council attacked us because they feared losing influence. He looked around the room. If we respond with violence, we prove their fears correct. Another official nodded. So what do we do? The advisor's answer was simple. We show the galaxy the truth. At first the room remained silent. Then realization spread. No invasion, no fleets, no assassinations, no revenge, just evidence. Pure, undeniable evidence. And suddenly everyone understood why that approach was so dangerous. Because governments could survive attacks. Governments could survive wars. But lies rarely survived exposure. Preparations began immediately. A massive data package was assembled. Every document verified. Every recording authenticated. Every accusation supported by evidence. Humanity intended to make sure nobody could dismiss the revelations as propaganda. The process took months. Yet eventually everything was ready. Operation Mirror entered its final phase. Across human space, engineers quietly built transmission systems unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Redundant networks, quantum relays, emergency backups, millions of synchronization points. The message had to reach every world simultaneously. If even one council member received advance warning, they might attempt to stop it. The operation would succeed only once. There would be no second chance. As launch day approached, tension spread through human leadership. Everyone understood the risks. The galaxy would never be the same afterward. Some worlds might blame humanity. Others might panic. Some governments could collapse entirely. Yet the alternative was worse. Allowing the truth to remain hidden. The final countdown began. 1 day remained. Then 12 hours. Then 6. Then 1. Deep inside the intelligence facility where the investigation had started, the original analyst watched the timer approach 0. He remembered the first clues. The first suspicions. The first victims. It felt impossible that everything had led to this moment. A senior officer entered the room. All systems ready. The analyst nodded. Every relay is online. The officer looked toward the massive display. Beyond it stretched thousands of stars. Thousands of civilizations. Entire histories. Entire futures. And in just a few minutes, all of it would change. If you've made it this far, subscribe to HYF Sci-Fi and join us for more unforgettable journeys through the galaxy. The countdown reached 30 seconds. Then 20. Then 10. Across the Galactic Council's capital, leaders slept peacefully. Confident. Secure. Certain that their secrets remained buried forever. None of them noticed the signal already moving through the network. None of them realized humanity had spent an entire year preparing a response. Not a military response. Not an economic response. A truth response. 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. The transmission launched. And at that exact moment, every screen, terminal, communication hub, military network, civilian broadcast station, and government archive across the known galaxy activated simultaneously. The first file appeared, then the second, then thousands more. The galaxy was about to witness secrets powerful enough to shake civilizations. And within minutes, the hunters who had once pursued humanity would discover what it felt like to become the hunted. And within minutes, the hunters who had once pursued humanity would discover what it felt like to become the hunted. At first, confusion spread across the galaxy. Citizens stared at their screens. Military officers paused their duties. Government officials rushed into emergency meetings. News networks interrupted every scheduled broadcast. Nobody understood what was happening. Then they began opening the files. One by one, world after world, system after system, civilization after civilization, and everything changed. Recordings surfaced showing council representatives secretly manipulating elections. Financial records revealed centuries of corruption. Private communications exposed political blackmail. Military documents detailed covert operations that had never been reported to the public. The evidence was overwhelming. Impossible to deny. Impossible to erase. Impossible to explain away. Across hundreds of worlds, citizens demanded answers. Governments demanded answers. Even council allies demanded answers. The situation deteriorated rapidly. Within hours, protests erupted on major population centers. Within days, entire sectors entered political crisis. The Council's carefully maintained image of wisdom and neutrality shattered before the eyes of the galaxy. And still the files kept coming. Every attempt to stop the transmissions failed. Every effort to block the broadcasts failed. Every attempt to silence the information failed. Human engineers had anticipated every countermeasure. The truth continued spreading. Like a supernova, on the Council capital, panic replaced confidence. Emergency meetings were called. Security forces flooded government facilities. Representatives shouted over one another inside the massive chamber where the original vote against humanity had taken place. What is happening? Who released this? Shut it down. Contain the damage. But there was no containing it. The damage had already escaped. One council member slammed a fist onto the table. Humanity did this. Nobody disagreed. The evidence pointed clearly toward them. Yet that realization only made the situation worse. Because humanity had not fired a single shot. Not one missile. Not one fleet. Not one invasion force. And somehow they had inflicted more damage than an entire galactic war. Far away, inside human territory, military commanders monitored the chaos. Many had expected retaliation. Many had expected attacks. Instead, something unexpected happened. World after world began contacting humanity. Not with threats, with questions, with gratitude, with support. Civilizations that had suffered under hidden council manipulation finally understood what had happened to them. Old mysteries suddenly made sense. Political disasters, economic collapses, unexplained conflicts. The answers had been buried inside the council's secrets all along. Humanity had not merely exposed corruption. They had exposed history itself. The following week became known as the 7 Days of Revelation. Every day brought new discoveries. Every day exposed another scandal. Every day weakened the council further. Several representatives resigned. Others were arrested by their own governments. Entire political blocs dissolved. For the first time in nearly 3,000 years, the Galactic Council stood on the edge of collapse. And then came the final revelation. The assassination program. Humanity released the evidence last. The recordings, the votes, the orders, the authorization logs, every detail, every signature, every participant. The entire galaxy watched in stunned silence. Citizens who had defended the Council for generations suddenly found themselves confronting an uncomfortable truth. The organization responsible for maintaining peace had secretly approved murder. Not during war, not during a crisis, but simply because humanity had become too successful, too influential, too independent. The reaction was immediate. Outrage exploded across the stars. Even species that disliked humanity condemned the operation. The justification was indefensible. The evidence was undeniable. And suddenly the Council's greatest fear became reality. They had united the galaxy. Not against humanity, against themselves. Weeks later, representatives from hundreds of civilizations gathered for an emergency summit. The atmosphere felt completely different from previous meetings. The Council no longer controlled the room. Fear did. Many leaders worried about what humanity might do next. After all, if humans had been capable of uncovering all of this, what else were they capable of? The answer arrived sooner than expected. A human delegation entered the chamber. Silence followed. Thousands of eyes watched them. Some with admiration, some with caution, some with outright fear. The lead human representative approached the center platform. For several moments he simply looked around the room. Then he began speaking. "We know many of you are afraid." His calm voice echoed through the chamber. "You believe humanity is preparing revenge." Nobody interrupted, because many of them had assumed exactly that. The representative continued. "When the assassinations were discovered, some among us demanded war." Images of the murdered targets appeared behind him. Scientists, diplomats, leaders, citizens, lives stolen for political convenience. We had every reason to retaliate. The room remained silent. Every reason to hate. Still silence. Every reason to destroy those responsible. Several former council members lowered their heads. Then the human representative smiled slightly. "But revenge was never our objective." Confusion spread through the audience. If not revenge, then what? The answer came immediately. Our objective was accountability. The giant chamber became perfectly still. Humanity had not sought conquest. Humanity had not sought domination. Humanity had sought truth, and that truth had proven more powerful than any weapon. The representative slowly walked forward. You believed our greatest strength was our military. Images of human warships appeared. You were wrong. The images vanished. You believed our greatest strength was our technology. Images of advanced human inventions appeared. You were wrong again. The images disappeared. Now only the stars remained. The representative looked directly at the assembly. Our greatest strength has always been something much simpler. The room waited. When one human is attacked, he paused. Billions begin searching for answers. A ripple moved through the audience. When one human suffers, another pause. Millions begin solving the problem. The chamber remained silent, and when someone attempts to control humanity through fear, his voice hardened. Humanity becomes impossible to stop. For several seconds nobody spoke. No applause, no interruptions, only silence. Because every civilization present understood the message. Humanity's greatest weapon was not found in a laboratory, or a shipyard, or a military base. It existed inside the minds of ordinary people. Curiosity, determination, creativity, the refusal to surrender, the qualities the Council had underestimated from the beginning. Months later, a new galactic government emerged. One built with transparency requirements, independent oversight, public accountability, and protections designed specifically to prevent another abuse of power. Humanity played an important role in creating it, yet they refused permanent control. That decision surprised many species. Some expected humans to seize authority. Others expected them to dominate the new system. Instead they chose partnership. The galaxy never forgot that choice. Years later, students across countless worlds studied the incident. Not as a war, not as a revolution, but as a lesson about arrogance, a lesson about power, and most importantly, a lesson about humanity, because the Galactic Council had believed they were sending a message when they dispatched their assassins. In the end, they did send a message. Just not the one they intended. The message echoed across the stars for generations. Never underestimate humanity, because when humans become the target, the truth itself becomes their weapon. And no force in the galaxy is more dangerous than a civilization united by the search for truth. If you enjoyed this epic HFY adventure, make sure to subscribe to HYF Sci-Fi for more stories where humanity rises against impossible odds and leaves the galaxy speechless.
Thanks for watching. If you love epic sci-fi stories and unforgettable adventures, be sure to like, share, and subscribe to HYF Sci-Fi. Join our growing community, and we'll see you in the next journey beyond the stars.